Mark lived in a cozy little house, filled with comfy chairs and lots of books. He was a kind man, always smiling, even though sometimes he felt a little lonely. He was in his 40s and liked things quiet and orderly. But his life wasn't always so calm. For as long as he could remember, a bright spark of energy had been a constant in his world, Lily. Lily wasn't his niece or a blood relative at all, but from the moment he met her as a toddler, she'd latched onto him, calling him Uncle Mark. Her parents were his close friends, and he happily embraced the role. He'd seen her through scraped knees, wobbly bike rides, and countless games of hide-and-seek. Mark always felt a special kind of fondness for Lily. He watched her grow up. He helped her with her homework. He even taught her how to bake cookies. He was always there for her. He saw her as the daughter he never had. His house was always open to her, a safe place filled with laughter and silly stories. He treasured those moments, the simple joy of watching her grow, learn, and become the wonderful young woman she was turning into. He anticipated her visits like sunshine on a cloudy day, a burst of youthful exuberance that chased away the quiet solitude of his life. He did not know that today would change everything. Let's rewind a little. Picture a small girl with pigtails, her face smudged with chocolate, clutching Mark's hand tightly at her 5th birthday party. He's helping her blow out the candles on her cake, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiles. "Make a good wish, Lilybug," he says, ruffling her hair. That was Mark and Lily then, pure, uncomplicated joy. Fast forward to her first school play. Lily, dressed as a fairy, nervously peeks out from behind the curtain. Mark, in the audience, gives her a reassuring thumbs up. He remembers how proud he felt when she delivered her lines perfectly, her voice clear and confident. After the show, he brought her flowers, a small bouquet of daisies that she treasured. Another scene, Lily's middle school graduation. She's taller now, braces glinting in the sun, accepting her diploma with a shy smile. Mark is there, cheering the loudest, snapping photos with his old camera. He remembers taking her out for ice cream afterward, celebrating her achievements, and dreaming about her future. Each milestone, each memory, was a thread woven into the tapestry of their unique relationship. Mark was always there, a constant, reliable presence in Lily's life. These memories solidified his view of her. She was family, a beloved fixture, the little girl he'd watched grow up. But time, as it always does, was about to pull a fast one. Mark's affection for Lily wasn't just a sense of obligation or a habit formed over time. It was a deep, genuine care that resonated within him. He felt responsible for her well-being, wanting her to be happy and safe. He'd always offered her advice, not in a preachy way, but with gentle guidance, hoping to steer her clear of life's inevitable pitfalls. He remembered helping her navigate the treacherous waters of high school friendships, offering a listening ear and a shoulder to cry on when her first crush ended in heartbreak. He attended every school event, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He beamed with pride at her academic achievements, celebrated her artistic talents, and encouraged her to pursue her passions, whatever they might be. He saw her potential, her unique spark, and wanted to nurture it in any way he could. He truly loved her, in the purest, most innocent way possible. He was proud of the young woman she was becoming, smart, kind, and compassionate. He envisioned her future filled with success and happiness, hoping that he could continue to play a supportive role in her life, offering guidance and encouragement whenever she needed it. He never thought of her as anything other than his surrogate daughter, someone to protect and cherish. That's why what was about to happen felt so earth-shattering. It challenged the very foundation of their relationship, threatening to unravel everything he held dear. Lily, however, was not oblivious to Mark's kindness. She had grown up seeing him as her uncle, a comforting, dependable figure. But as she blossomed into a young woman, her perception began to shift. She noticed the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the warmth of his smile, the strength of his hands when he helped her with something. She started seeing him not just as Uncle Mark, but as Mark the man. Her childish adoration evolved into something more complex, a confusing mix of affection, admiration, and a budding awareness of him as an attractive and desirable person. She observed the way other women looked at him, the subtle flirtations that he seemed completely oblivious to. She realized that he was a handsome man, kind and genuine, qualities that were increasingly rare in the boys her own age. She started paying more attention to her appearance when she knew she would be seeing him, carefully selecting her outfits, experimenting with makeup. She wanted to impress him, to make him see her not as the little girl he had always known, but as the woman she was becoming. She knew it was complicated, perhaps even wrong, but she couldn't deny the feelings that were growing stronger within her. The uncle label felt increasingly restrictive, a barrier to the connection she craved. She knew her 18th birthday was the perfect time to show him how she really felt. It was time for Mark to see her, the real her. Not his daughter Lily. The morning of Lily's 18th birthday dawned bright and clear. Mark woke up early, a sense of anticipation bubbling inside him. He had planned a small, intimate celebration, just the four of them, Lily, her parents, and himself. He envisioned a cozy dinner, maybe a cake with too much frosting, and a few heartfelt gifts. He spent the morning tidying up the house, making sure everything was perfect for Lily's special day. He arranged a bouquet of her favorite flowers, daisies, on the coffee table, a nostalgic nod to the small bouquet he'd given her after her school play years ago. He even attempted to bake her favorite chocolate chip cookies, a task that usually ended in a slightly burnt, but still edible, result. He checked his watch every few minutes, eager for Lily and her parents to arrive. He had a gift for her, a beautiful necklace with a small, delicate pendant. It was something he had carefully chosen, a symbol of their bond, a reminder of the special place she held in his heart. He imagined the look on her face when she opened it, the warm hug she would give him. He was looking forward to a simple, happy celebration, a continuation of the many birthdays they had shared over the years. He had no idea that his expectations were about to be shattered. He thought this was going to be just another family celebration, but it was going to be something completely different. The doorbell rang, shattering Mark's peaceful preparations. He smoothed down his shirt, took a deep breath, and opened the door with a wide smile. "Lilybug! Happy birthday!" he exclaimed, ready to engulf her in a warm hug. But the hug never happened. Standing before him was Lily, but not the Lily he expected. She was alone. "Hi, Mark," she said softly, her voice a little lower than usual. His smile faltered. "Where are your parents?" he asked, his brow furrowing with concern. "They couldn't make it," she replied, avoiding his gaze. But it wasn't just her parents' absence that caught him off guard. It was her outfit. She was wearing a dress he had never seen before, a simple black dress that clung to her figure, revealing curves he hadn't realized she possessed. It was elegant, sophisticated, and utterly unlike anything she would usually wear. He froze, his mind struggling to reconcile the image before him with the Lily he knew. The pigtails were gone, replaced by long, flowing hair that cascaded down her shoulders. The sneakers had been swapped for delicate heels that made her legs look impossibly long. She looked different. Grown up. And suddenly, he felt a knot forming in his stomach, a sense of unease that he couldn't quite explain. The Lilybug he knew had vanished. In her place was a woman, and she was standing right in front of him. This was going to be a very different birthday. The initial shock began to wear off, replaced by an awkward attempt at normalcy. Mark ushered Lily inside, his mind racing. "Well, come in, he said, trying to sound cheerful, but his voice wavered slightly. "I made cookies, though they might be a little crispy." Lily offered a small, polite smile. "Thank you, Mark." She walked further into the living room, her heels clicking softly on the wooden floor. The sound seemed amplified in the sudden silence. He followed her, feeling like he was walking on eggshells. He tried to make conversation, asking her about school, her plans for the summer, anything to fill the uncomfortable void. But Lily's responses were short and reserved, a stark contrast to her usual bubbly enthusiasm. She seemed distant, preoccupied. He noticed she kept glancing at him, her eyes lingering a moment longer than usual. He felt a strange mix of flattery and discomfort. He was used to her looking up to him, seeking his guidance, but this felt different. This felt like evaluation. He poured them both glasses of lemonade, his hands trembling slightly. "So," he began, clearing his throat. 18, huh? Big day." He chuckled nervously, but Lily didn't laugh. She just looked at him, her expression unreadable. The easy banter they usually shared was gone, replaced by a palpable tension that hung heavy in the air. This was not going to be an easy evening. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Mark fidgeted, glancing around the room, desperate for a distraction. He gestured towards the cookies. "Want one?" he asked, his voice a little too loud. Lily shook her head slightly. "Not right now, thank you." She paused, then her gaze locked with his. "Mark," she began, her voice soft but firm. "Can we talk about something?" His heart skipped a beat. He knew this was coming. He could feel it in the air, the unspoken words hanging between them like a fragile thread. He braced himself, trying to maintain a calm facade. "Of course, Lily. What's on your mind?" Instead of answering, she stood up and walked towards him. He watched her, his breath catching in his throat. She stopped directly in front of him, her eyes searching his. Then, without a word, she reached out and gently took his hand. He felt a jolt of electricity shoot through him, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. Her hand was warm and soft, her touch both familiar and foreign. He stared at their joined hands, his mind reeling. And then she did something that completely shattered his carefully constructed reality. She tugged him gently towards the sofa, and then, with a grace and confidence he never knew she possessed, she sat down, and pulled him down with her, settling herself comfortably on his lap. His world tilted on its axis. This was not the Lily he knew. This was something else entirely. Mark's mind went blank. Lily, all soft curves and unexpected closeness, was sitting on his lap. The scent of her perfume, a subtle floral fragrance, filled his senses. He could feel the warmth of her body against his, a sensation that was both intoxicating and terrifying. He swallowed hard, struggling to find his voice. His ingrained sense of propriety, the years of seeing her as a child, warred with the undeniable attraction he felt towards the woman she had become. He needed to say something, anything, to break the spell. "Lily," he stammered, his voice cracking slightly. This isn't really appropriate, is it? You're like a daughter to me." The words felt clumsy and inadequate, a desperate attempt to re-establish the boundaries that had suddenly dissolved. He could feel her stiffen slightly. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. She reached up and gently brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, her touch sending shivers down his spine. Then she leaned closer, her lips just inches from his ear, and whispered 2 words that changed everything. 2 words that shattered his world and forced him to confront the uncomfortable truth that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. 2 words that would forever alter the course of their relationship. Not anymore. The air crackled with unspoken desires and the weight of years of suppressed feelings. Everything was about to change. The 2 words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Not anymore. Mark's heart hammered against his ribs. He could feel the blood rushing to his face, his palms growing clammy. He stared at Lily, his mind struggling to process what she had just said. He had always seen her as a child, a precious young girl he needed to protect. But now, sitting on his lap, radiating a quiet confidence and undeniable allure, she was anything but a child. She was a woman, and she was looking at him with something that felt dangerously close to desire. He tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. He felt trapped, caught between his ingrained sense of what was right and the undeniable pull of attraction. He knew he should tell her to get off his lap, to end this charade immediately. But he couldn't. He was frozen, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of her actions and the confusing emotions they stirred within him. He thought of all the years he had known her, all the memories they had shared. Could he really risk jeopardizing their bond, their friendship, for a fleeting moment of passion? Was it worth throwing away everything they had built together for something that might ultimately end in heartbreak? The weight of the decision pressed down on him, heavy and suffocating. He knew that whatever he did next would have profound consequences, not just for him, but for Lily as well. The comfortable, predictable rhythm of his life had been irrevocably disrupted. He was standing at a crossroads, and the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. He didn't know what to do next. "Mark," Lily said softly, breaking the silence. "I know this is probably a lot to take in, but I need you to understand. My feelings for you have changed. They've been changing for a while now." He looked at her, his eyes filled with confusion and a hint of fear. "Lily, He started, but she cut him off. "Please, just listen," she pleaded, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm 18 years old, and I'm old enough to know what I want. And what I want is you." She took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering. "I know it might seem strange, or even wrong, but I can't help the way I feel. You've always been there for me, Mark. You've always been kind and supportive and everything I could ever ask for in a person." She paused, her eyes glistening with tears. "I know you see me as a daughter, but I'm not. And I haven't been for a long time. I understand if you don't feel the same way, but I needed you to know. I couldn't keep it inside any longer." She looked at him, her expression vulnerable and sincere. The weight of her confession hung heavy in the air, demanding a response. Mark knew he couldn't ignore her words. He had to say something, even if he didn't know what that something was. The next few moments would decide everything. He had a choice to make. Mark looked at her, searching her eyes for any sign of deception or manipulation. But all he saw was honesty, vulnerability, and a deep, unwavering sincerity. He realized that this wasn't some childish infatuation or a rebellious act of defiance. This was real. He took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. "Lily," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I don't know what to say. I never saw you that way." "I know," she replied softly. "And I'm not asking you to suddenly change the way you feel. I just needed you to know how I feel. I needed to be honest with you, and with myself." She reached up and gently cupped his face in her hands, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through him. "I'm not asking you to make a decision right now, Mark. I just want you to think about it. Think about whether there might be something more between us, something beyond the uncle and daughter dynamic we've always had." She paused, her eyes searching his. "I know it's complicated, and I know there are a lot of reasons why this might not work. But I also know that we have something special, something worth exploring. And I'm willing to take that risk if you are." She removed her hands from his face and sat back slightly, giving him space to breathe. "Just think about it, okay? And whatever you decide, I'll respect your decision. I just needed you to know the truth." The ball was now in his court. He had to decide what to do. Mark stood up abruptly, needing to put some distance between himself and Lily. He walked over to the window, staring out at the darkening sky, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He thought about his friends, Lily's parents. How would they react if he even entertained the idea of a relationship with their daughter? He imagined their disappointment, their anger, their sense of betrayal. He couldn't bear the thought of hurting them, of destroying the friendship they had shared for so many years. He thought about Lily, about her future. Was he really the right person for her? He was so much older, so much more experienced. Was he just a safe haven, a comforting presence in her life, or did she genuinely see him as a potential partner? He also couldn't deny the attraction he felt towards her, the undeniable pull that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. He had always tried to suppress those feelings, to rationalize them as a fatherly affection, but now they were impossible to ignore. He knew that if he pursued a relationship with Lily, he would be crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. He would be jeopardizing everything he held dear, his friendships, his reputation, and perhaps even Lily's well-being. But he also knew that if he rejected her, he might be missing out on something truly special, something that could bring him happiness and fulfillment he had never known before. He was torn, caught between his sense of responsibility and the undeniable desires of his heart. What was he going to do? He had to make a choice. "Lily," Mark began, turning back to face her, his voice raw with emotion. "This isn't easy for me. You have to understand that. I've known you since you were a little girl. It's hard to just change the way I see you." "I know," she replied softly. "I'm not asking you to erase the past. I'm just asking you to consider the present. To see me as I am now, not as I was." "But what about your parents?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "They're my friends. How could I do this to them? They might not understand at first," she admitted. "But they love me, and they want me to be happy. And if you make me happy, eventually they'll come around." "And what if they don't?" he challenged. "What if this destroys our friendship? What if it ruins everything? Then we'll deal with it," she said, her voice firm. "We'll face it together. Because I believe in us, Mark. I believe that what we have is worth fighting for." "But is it fair to you?" he asked, his voice filled with doubt. "I'm so much older than you. I've lived a whole different life. Are you sure this is what you really want?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," she replied, her eyes shining with conviction. "I know this might seem crazy, but I'm not afraid." "Are you?" The question hung in the air between them, a challenge and an invitation. The conversation had begun, and it was not going to be easy. Mark reached out and gently brushed a stray tear from Lily's cheek, his fingers lingering on her skin. He gazed into her eyes, seeing a depth of emotion he had never noticed before. He felt an overwhelming urge to kiss her, to close the distance between them and explore the uncharted territory that lay before them. He leaned in closer, his lips hovering just inches from hers. He could feel her breath on his skin, her heart beating rapidly against his chest. The air crackled with unspoken desires, with the promise of something new and exciting. Just as their lips were about to meet, the shrill ring of the telephone shattered the spell. Mark jumped back, startled, his face flushed with embarrassment. Lily giggled nervously, breaking the tension. He hesitated for a moment, then reached for the phone. "Hello?" he said, his voice still a little shaky. "Mark?" a familiar voice said on the other end. It was Susan, Lily's mother. "Happy birthday to Lily! We're so sorry we couldn't make it tonight. There was a family emergency. Is Lily there?" Mark's heart sank. He looked at Lily, his eyes filled with guilt and confusion. He knew he couldn't hide the truth from her parents, but he also didn't know how to explain what was happening. "Yes, she's here," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Just a moment." He handed the phone to Lily, his mind racing. The intrusion of reality had forced them to confront the consequences of their actions, to acknowledge the potential fallout that awaited them. What was Lily going to say? Everything was about to change again. Lily took the phone, her face pale. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice barely audible. Mark watched her, his heart aching with a mixture of guilt and longing. He knew that this conversation could change everything. He paced the room, his mind racing, trying to make sense of the situation. He knew he had to make a decision, and he had to make it soon. He couldn't keep stringing Lily along, leading her to believe that there was a future for them when he wasn't sure if he could commit. He stopped pacing and looked at Lily, really looked at her. He saw her vulnerability, her strength, her unwavering belief in him. He realized that he couldn't deny his feelings any longer. He loved her, not as a daughter, but as a woman. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome. But he also knew that he couldn't imagine his life without her. He was willing to take the risk, to face the consequences, to fight for their love. He took a deep breath and walked over to Lily, gently taking her hand. She looked at him, her eyes filled with hope and anticipation. He squeezed her hand tightly, offering her a silent reassurance. He knew that this was just the beginning, that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But he also knew that they could face it together, as long as they had each other. He had made his decision. It was time to tell her. He would choose love. Lily hung up the phone, her eyes filled with tears. "They're really sorry they couldn't be here," she said, her voice trembling. "They had to rush to the hospital. My grandmother, she's not doing well." Mark pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "I'm so sorry, Lily," he said, his voice filled with compassion. "Do you want to go to the hospital?" Lily shook her head. "No, there's nothing I can do there. I just need you right now." Mark held her tightly, his heart aching for her. He knew that whatever happened next, their relationship would never be the same. They had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. Whether they chose to pursue a relationship or not, the dynamic between them had been irrevocably changed. They would have to navigate a new and uncertain future, a future filled with challenges and obstacles, but also with the possibility of love and happiness. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, that there would be difficult conversations to have, difficult decisions to make. But he also knew that they could face it together, as long as they were honest with each other and true to themselves. He looked at Lily, his eyes filled with love and determination. "I'm here for you, Lily," he said, his voice firm. "Whatever you need, I'll be here." He had made his choice, and he was ready to face the future, whatever it may hold. Their relationship would never be the same. Years later, Mark sat on the porch of a small cottage by the sea, watching the waves crash against the shore. His hair was grayer now, his face etched with the lines of time and experience. Beside him sat Lily, her hand resting gently on his. She was no longer the young girl he had known, but a confident, beautiful woman, her eyes filled with wisdom and love. The years had not been easy. There had been challenges and sacrifices, difficult conversations and moments of doubt. But they had faced them together, their love growing stronger with each passing year. Lily's parents had eventually come to accept their relationship, seeing the genuine happiness it brought to their daughter. They had even come to appreciate Mark, recognizing his kindness and his unwavering devotion to Lily. Mark looked at Lily, his heart overflowing with gratitude. He had found love in the most unexpected place, and he had learned that sometimes, the greatest risks are worth taking. He knew that their story was not a fairy tale, that there would be more challenges to face in the future. But he also knew that they could face them together, as long as they had each other. Their love was a testament to the power of connection, to the enduring strength of the human spirit. He squeezed Lily's hand tightly, offering her a silent vow of love and commitment. And as they watched the sun set over the ocean, he knew that whatever the future may hold, they would face it together, hand in hand, their love a beacon of hope in a world of uncertainty. They had found their happiness together.